Hello, my friend. We meet again on this journey to seek true rest for the soul. If you listened to the previous part, you probably remember the image. The disciples standing in the middle of a wheat field, crushed grains in their hands, and before them the accusing eyes of the Pharisees. Why are you doing what is not permitted on the Sabbath? That question still hangs in the air. It is not just a question about the law, but about the boundary of life itself. When people are pushed into a corner by hunger and exhaustion, do they still have the right to break even the most sacred rules? Normally, when attacked with laws, people fight back with laws. We argue, this clause says this, that clause says that. We try to justify ourselves. We look for loopholes. But Jesus does not do that. He does not argue about farming techniques or harvesting rules. He does not pull out a thick book of laws to compare passages. Instead, he does something far simpler and infinitely deeper. He tells a story. He takes them back through history to a sacred memory of the Jewish people, the memory of their greatest king, King David. Today, let me tell you the story that Jesus used to silence those accusing voices. A story about a king, a temple, and sacred bread eaten by ordinary men. We often remember King David as a hero who defeated the giant Goliath, a king seated on a radiant throne, a musician playing the harp in praise of God. But the story Jesus chose to retell is not one of those glorious moments. It is a dark and desperate chapter in David's life. At that time, David had not yet become king. He was a fugitive. King Saul, driven by obsessive jealousy, was hunting him down relentlessly. David had to leave everything behind: his family, his honor, his safety. He fled into the wilderness with a small group of loyal followers, men who were just as exhausted as he was. They had no weapons, they had no stored provisions, and most importantly, they were hungry. The hunger of men on the run is different from the hunger of a farmer after a long day in the fields. This was the hunger of survival. If they did not eat, they would not have the strength to keep running, and if they could not run, they would die by Saul's sword. In that desperation, David came to Nob, the place where the tabernacle of God was kept. He knocked and met the priest Ahimelech. Picture David's face at that moment. No trace of royal dignity, no heroic presence, just a dusty, hollow-eyed man, his gaze pleading. He did not ask for gold. He did not ask for power. He asked for only one thing: bread. Do you have anything on hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread, or whatever you can find. 1 Samuel 21-3. It is the plea of a man stripped of every layer of protection, left with nothing but raw human survival. The priest Ahimelech looked at David with deep concern. He was the guardian of the sanctuary. He knew exactly what was and was not available inside the tent. "I don't have any ordinary bread," the priest replied. "Only the sacred bread." The sacred bread, also known as the bread of the presence, was not normal food. It consisted of 12 loaves placed on a golden table in the holy place, representing the 12 tribes of Israel standing before God. According to the strict law, Leviticus 24-9, these loaves were most holy. They were dedicated to God alone. After fresh bread was set out on the Sabbath, the old loaves could be eaten only by the priests, and only in the holy place. Ordinary people were absolutely forbidden to touch them. That was the red line, an inviolable rule meant to protect the holiness of the temple. Now the situation became intensely tense. On one side stood the holy law. This bread belongs to God. Ordinary men may not eat it. On the other side stood life itself. If they do not eat, David and his men will die. The priest Ahimelech stood between these two choices. If he kept the law, he would preserve the dignity of the ritual, but he would allow the Lord's anointed to starve to death at the very door of God's house. If he fed David, he would break the law. He would defile what was holy. What would you do if you were that priest? Would you choose to preserve the principles of the institution, or would you choose to save a human life that was slipping away? And then the miracle happened, a quiet miracle, without thunder or lightning. The priest took those sacred loaves, the bread meant only for God and those who served him, and placed them into David's hands. David took the bread, he broke it, and he and his men ate. They ate the bread of God to keep their trembling human bodies alive. Why did Jesus bring up this story? Why did he use it to answer the Pharisees? Because he wanted to reveal the truth that shakes everything. God was not angry when David ate that bread. In the Old Testament, some people touched the Ark of the Covenant and died instantly for their irreverence. But here, David ate the sacred bread and lived. No fire fell from heaven to consume him. No curse was spoken. Why? Because in God's eyes, human life is more sacred than the bread on the altar. Because the sacred bread was made to serve the relationship between God and people, not to let people starve beside it. Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees and to us. You honor David, don't you? You call him the man after God's own heart. And yet when David was hungry, he placed life above ritual, and God accepted it. So why do you condemn my disciples for plucking a few heads of grain to eat? He is turning their value system upside down. They believed ritual is greater than human beings. Jesus declares, human beings is greater than ritual, anything that calls itself holy, yet demands that people slowly wither and die in order to protect it, has already strayed far from the heart of God. My dear friend, the story of David and the sacred bread may sound ancient, but it is unfolding right in your life today. We may no longer have a temple or the bread of the presence in the literal sense, but we have our own sacred breads, things we revere, protect, and fear so deeply that we are willing to let ourselves starve for them. It might be career. We treat our work like an untouchable sanctuary. We sacrifice sleep, health, and time with family to offer ourselves on its altar. When our exhausted bodies cry out for rest, we say, no. This is sacred. I'm not allowed to stop. I have to be professional. It might be the perfect image. We construct the image of the perfect parent, the flawless employee, the dutiful child. That image becomes our sacred bread. And even when we are breaking inside, depressed, overwhelmed, desperate for help, we dare not admit it, because we fear that weakness would defile the image. It might be rigid principles. We write unyielding rules for ourselves. I have to be strong. I'm not allowed to cry. I must handle everything on my own. We guard these rules as strictly as the Pharisees guarded the Sabbath. And when our souls hunger for connection and care, we forbid them. Through David's story, Jesus asks you a question gentle yet piercing. Are you allowing these sacred breads to matter more than your own life? He wants you to know this. No rule, no career, no image is more important than the life he has given you. If you need rest in order to survive, then rest. That is not sin. It is the protection of life. If you need to release a responsibility in order to heal your soul, then let it go. God does not need you to die on the altar of busyness. He desires mercy. He desires life. As he brings the story to a close, Jesus quotes a line from the prophet Hosea. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Matthew 12:7. This is the key that unlocks every law. God did not establish the Sabbath because he needed you to rest. He does not grow tired. He established it for you. God did not create the law of the sacred bread because he was hungry. He created it to teach his people about holiness. But when law collides with human pain, mercy must be the one that wins. The priest Ahimelech's act of giving the bread to David was not a violation of the law. It was the fulfillment of the law at its highest level, the law of love. In the same way, when Jesus allowed his disciples to eat grain on the Sabbath, he was not treating the holy day with contempt. He was restoring it to its true meaning, a day meant for human beings to truly live. Today, as you hear these words, I hope you feel a gentle sense of release in your soul. You do not have to be a saint who never feels hunger. You do not have to be a warrior who never grows tired. You are allowed to be David, dusty, hungry, and in need of help. And God, who understands everything, is willing to invite you to eat the bread of rest, even when the world tells you that you are not qualified enough, not perfect enough, not following the right procedure. Take a moment to look honestly at the pressures you are carrying. Ask yourself, is there something I am treating as sacred to such an extent that it is hurting me and the people I love? If there is, be courageous like David. Reach out your hand and receive life. Choose to prioritize your mental and physical well-being. Because in God's eyes, you, this flesh and blood human being, are the most sacred temple He desires to dwell in. Do not let ritual destroy life. Let life bring honor to ritual. Take a deep breath in and breathe out your fear. Welcome the peace of God into your heart.